Thank you for joining the fourth town hall in our Back to School in the Time of COVID series. Tonight's guest is Jan Yoshiwara, Executive Director of the Washington State Board for Community and Technical Colleges. We welcome questions from constituents to add to this discussion, so if you're watching this live on Facebook and have a question, please ask it in the comments section of this video and we'll get to your questions as well. I'm now going to hand it over to Congressman Heck and then Ms. Yoshiwara for opening comments. Congressman Heck?
Thank you very much, Lauren. Thank you all for joining us. Again, this is the fourth in a 7-part series. It is, however, the 25th Teletown Hall we've held since April and the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, covering a wide range of issues related to our state's response to COVID-19. Tonight's guest is, in fact, Jan Yoshiwara, who is the Executive Director of the State Board of Community and Technical Colleges. There are 34 of them. I am, frankly, a rare elected official in that I actually attended a community college. I attended Clark College in Vancouver, and as I like to joke, I have no idea who came up with the idea that their mascot should be the penguin in Vancouver, Washington, but by golly, that's what it is. They were important, formative, and valuable educational experiences for me. So Jan, we're delighted to have you here and discuss this. Jan joins us, having been appointed Executive Director in 2017, but has 36 years of service at the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges. Jan, why don't we just start out by having you explain to people, what do you do? What does the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges do?
Well, thank you, Congressman Heck, for inviting me to join you today. I'm very excited that you attended Clark College. That's awesome. Just so you know that you're not alone. So we did a survey of the state's voters a couple of years ago and found out that 80% of Washingtonians had either attended a community or technical college or had a direct family member who had attended a community or technical college. So our reach is very broad and deep into the adult population in our state.
Jan, what percentage of the state legislature ever attended a community college? Because my sense is it's way lower than that.
That's a very good question. But you know, kind of an interesting thing has happened. So you know about the Running Starts program, which is a dual credit program for high school students, juniors and seniors, to be able to go to their local college and get college credit and high school credit at the same time. So we are finding more and more, because this program has been around for more than 20 years, that...
Actually, Jan, if I may rudely interrupt, 30 years. It was
30.
enacted. It was enacted when I was Chief of Staff to Governor Booth Gardner, and it was his executive request legislation, as a matter of fact. I was there at the origin.
Well, great. Thank you for doing that. So we bump into legislators more and more often whose children attended a college through the Running Start program. And so it's very popular. There's tremendous support for it. We have more and more high school juniors and seniors coming to our colleges every year for Running Start. And, you know, since we're here to talk about COVID and COVID impact a little bit, about half of the students who enroll through the Running Start program are taking classes online. So with all of the classes that our colleges have moved online, there's tremendous opportunity now, I think, for high school students who want to get a jump start on college by earning some college credits while they're in high school.
What is the total number? What's the total enrollment last year of students in the community college system, and what of that number were Running Start students?
We served 360,000 students last year, and of that, about 30,000 were Running Start students. So it's a significant part of our student body and the way in which we serve Washingtonians. Those 360,000 students attended 34 community and technical colleges all around the state. They came for workforce education, for training for jobs, for the first 2 years of a bachelor's degree before transferring to a university, and for basic skills. So things like English as a second language and high school diplomas for adults.
Do you know the number, and I wouldn't expect you to off the top of your head, about the number of students who simultaneously graduated last year, both with a high school diploma and an Associate of Arts degree?
Oh, that's a very good question. It is, it's in the thousands. So I want to say it's around 4,000 students that earned both a high school diploma and a college associate degree at the same time.
My recollection, Jan, is that the legislation establishing the community college system was enacted in 1967. Am I close?
That's correct.
Now, a lot of people don't seem to realize that prior to that, community and technical colleges most often were actually grades 13 and 14, if you will, of the local school district. But it was in 1967 that the law setting up the system was put into effect. So what's the role of the state board then?
The state board is the fiscal and policy agency for the college system. So when the legislature created the community and technical college system in 1967, they wanted to have one appropriation to the college system for operating and for capital. And that appropriation comes to the state board. And one of our principal functions is to receive and distribute that money to all 34 colleges, both on the operating and the capital side.
And the requests that come to the legislature come through the State Board for Community Colleges and then via the Office of Financial Management. Is that not correct, Jan?
It's a consolidated request on behalf of all 34 colleges in the system.
And that includes rank ordering the capital budget request. It's your job in part to get a single sheet of projects that the legislature can work from that is the product, as it were, of a rational framework for making those decisions?
That's right. So we have a set of criteria that the colleges all agree on for proposing capital projects. And then we have scoring teams that score based on quantitative criteria, qualitative criteria, score each project, and then we rank each project based on their score against the criteria. So we have a very good, well-developed system for ranking capital projects. And one of the challenges, I think, for our colleges is that because there's not enough room in our capital budget appropriation for every college to get a new building, it's a highly competitive process. And we do the hard work for the legislature and for the governor of ranking those projects and saying which one has higher need than the next one. And we put together a list that fits on one piece of paper.
You're the one that in the first line of defense says no.
We are.
So describe, if you can or will, please, Jan, some about how the various 34 community colleges and technical colleges are offering coursework this fall, this month, and what you know about what has happened to enrollment in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes. So our colleges are offering classes this fall predominantly online. And as you know, we have workforce training programs, and many of those programs are equipment intensive and have hands-on labs, including in healthcare, welding, CNC machining, advanced manufacturing, many of those kinds of programs where students not only get the theory, but they also get hands-on practice. And so the hands-on practice classes were closed down in March when the governor issued his stay-home order. And so in May, we got permission to reopen those hands-on courses, lab courses in essential occupations. And our reasoning was, if our economy needs nurses and needs people in these utility workers and folks to continue to work, then we probably need to continue to graduate those people out into the labor force so that they can work in those fields. So we got permission to reopen those classes. We kept everything else online that could be put online. And we reopened those hands-on classes with physical distancing, personal protective equipment, face coverings, disinfection, contact tracing protocols, um, et cetera, so that we were able to reopen in a safe environment. And we're using that experience that we gained from bringing those small groups of students and faculty back to campus to operate with really strong safety and health protocols, and applying that experience and that knowledge to reopening in the fall. So I think we are going to be predominantly online in the fall with strong health and safety protocols for the hands-on lab and practicum classes.
Jen, back to the role of the state board. I think it's important to clarify that each community and technical college has its own president chosen by its own board of trustees who are appointed by the governor, so that people understand that you don't actually tell each community or technical college what to do or how to do it. Fair enough?
That's right. We are the fiscal agency for the colleges. And so we have a strong relationship with the colleges, obviously, but the governance is decentralized. So as you said, every college district has its own board. The board hires the president or the chancellor and they set the budget. They award degrees. They award tenure to faculty members. The contracts are locally collectively bargained, and that happens all at the institutional, at the college district level, not by the state board. So we do have a strong role, but the delivery and all of those decisions about programs and services are made locally.
I think important to note, because it's been the object of debate and discussion over the years, the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges has this fiscal agency, its coordinating role for all 34 community colleges and technical colleges. No such parallel exists for the four-year colleges and universities. They are truly, as it were, out on their own without a centralized fiscal agent, although that has been debated in the past and never, frankly, gone much of anywhere. Jan, when I went to Clark College, now granted this was a year or two ago, I do remember, however, like yesterday, because I had to have a part-time job and earn the money to do this, what my quarterly tuition was. $83.
Yeah.
Fast forward, what is quarterly tuition now?
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Now, don't be unkind.
Well, we both have hair color that's different from when we first started in this business. So our tuition for a full-time student for each quarter is $1,410 now.
Up a bit from 83.
It's up a bit, yeah. It is worth noting that we're at the national average for community college tuition.
Yes, I don't mean this to be even implicitly critical, but I do think it's important for historical context. We used to view the community and technical colleges as having an open door. And what was meant by that term, and it was a term of art that was widely used, was if you can't afford to pay the tuition, we're going to pay it for you. We will find a way to make sure that everybody who wants to go to community college will be able to do that through some form of tuition assistance.
Mm-hmm.
That's no longer the case, is it, Jan?
Well, we do have a strong financial aid program in our state. So the Washington College Grant, I think that was enacted by the legislature last year, provides a financial aid guarantee for low-income families who can't afford to go to college. So it is like the Pell Grant in that it is an entitlement now. And if so the money doesn't run out. If you qualify, then you will receive a Washington College Grant no matter when you apply. And I think, who knew about the timing, but having this policy in place now at the time of the pandemic, when so many people have lost their jobs and are trying to figure out how they're going to continue their plans to go to college for themselves and their children. This is very timely that we have this new policy in place. The other policy piece that was enacted by the legislature, along with making it an entitlement, is that families can qualify up to 100% of the median family income. So that means half the families in Washington state will qualify for a full or partial Washington College grant to help them pay their college expenses. This is a really big deal. And I, really strongly encourage all Washingtonians who have been thinking about the value of going to college, getting some training to get that better job, to take advantage of this opportunity right now.
So the open door does exist?
The open door exists in that there is strong financial aid, and that we have colleges in every corner of the state, strong online programs, and we hope that we will be able to maintain our capacity. We are state-funded institutions, and we also know that every time there's an economic downturn with tens of thousands of people laid off from their jobs, that those people come to the community and technical colleges. They turn to us to get training and job skills to be more competitive in a tighter labor market. And we are expecting that surge to happen again.
So I'd asked earlier what you know about enrollment for this month and this quarter, especially as it relates to a year ago. As you suggest, enrollment demand for community colleges, in fact, for four-year colleges too, as I recall, has always been counter-cyclical. When the economy goes down, enrollment applications go up. People tend to choose that time to retool themselves and get ready for the next economy, as it were. But in this context, we've also got the COVID-19 pandemic. So what do you know about enrollment this month, this fall quarter versus a year ago?
Yeah, that's such a good question. We've all been trying to figure that out. So one thing that happened was spring quarter, when all classes shifted to online mode, all classes that could shift to online mode shifted to online, that we saw a drop in enrollment from winter to spring of 12%. That is a huge drop in enrollment for the college system. And it was primarily the technical students who either their classes could not move online, so they couldn't continue in their programs, or they didn't feel comfortable learning online because they're hands-on learners. So we are experiencing some of that worry for the fall, that because we are going to have all of the theory type classes continue to be online, even the theory parts of workforce education programs. And we're working really hard on the health and safety protocols for hands-on lab and practicum courses for the fall. But I think, people are worried about their finances. And what we saw from the last recession was that people don't want to come to college, or can't really wrap their minds around deciding to go to college until they have their income support straightened out. And that income support with unemployment insurance has been pretty rocky this past couple of months, for a variety of reasons, and some of which is the ups and downs and decisions by the Congress about funding unemployment benefits for people who are laid off from their jobs. And so, what we saw last time was that our enrollment peaked in 2011, and the recession started in 2008. And we did have 30,000 additional students from before the recession coming to our colleges. So there was a huge impact, but it took time for it to get there, because people have to take care of their basic needs first before they think about going to college. So our Enrollment is looking like it's going to be down fall quarter. I don't know how much, but financial aid applications are down, admissions applications are down. Our colleges are worried about enrollment in the fall. And it's not just us, this is a national phenomenon. And it is also true in the university sector as well. I think we're all concerned about students and people being able to continue to move forward with their plans to earn college credentials.
And in part, colleges are worried not just because the needs of the student aren't being met, but because your revenue will decline, but your fixed cost won't. That sets you up to be in a double whammy because state revenues are far off, and we need to talk about this, Jan. The fact of the matter is community colleges are funded out of the general fund. There is a significant share of the general fund that is protected from any reduction. For example, federal programs cannot be reduced in large part. The K-12 system is something like 96.5% protected under the provisions of Article 9, Section 1 of our state constitution. Mm-hmm. And that means that all the rest that are not protected are subject to an even deeper cut. Throughout our state's history, every economic recession has brought with it reductions in support for higher education, and almost always supplanting that by having increased tuition setting authority for local boards of trustees. I know this, I was on a 4-year college board of trustee during the Great Recession. I think it would be helpful if you describe just how at risk our community and technical college system is, precisely at the time when people are going to need to go back and retool, as I suggested earlier, given the fact that some economists are now projecting 1 in 4 of the jobs we are losing will not return. Those people need the kinds of services community colleges provide, and yet they're facing very scary budgetary circumstances. Can you describe that in a way that the regular person can understand?
Well, that's right. It is a very challenging situation for us across state government, but as you pointed out, especially for higher education and especially for community and technical colleges. So we operate on lean margins to begin with. And 85% of our expenditures are in people, faculty and staff that directly support students. So if we experience significant budget cuts, we have to reduce faculty and staff spending. And what that translates into is fewer classes for students and fewer programs for students, less support services for students that make it harder for them to stay in college and to successfully complete their classes and graduate. So we believe that we have a very important role in economic recovery for our state and for individuals who need us, need training, and need college credentials to get back into the labor force. And, it's unfortunate that we have these counter-cyclical patterns where at the time when Washingtonians need community colleges and technical colleges the most, the state revenues are also in a decline, and we have to face budget reductions that reduce our capacity to serve people who need us at a really critical time in their lives. So, we are working very hard to advocate for ourselves, to advocate for our institutions, but more importantly, to advocate for the Washingtonians that we serve and the important role that we play in economic recovery. And there is no question that if our budgets are reduced, that we're going to have to shrink our services to people, and it will prolong the recession, and it will extend the period of economic recovery for our state and for our citizens.
I guess, Jen, what I would appreciate is if you could describe what that might look like. For example, I think I heard that the Office of Financial Management asked you all to prepare for 15% reductions. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What would that look like? To the average person, it's 15%. What
Mhm.
does that mean in terms of the operation of a community college? Obviously, they're each going to be making that decision locally about how they would absorb that. But can you
Mhm.
give examples of what that might mean so
Sure.
that somebody could better understand why that level of reduction is, as it were, penny wise, pound foolish in the context of our current economic circumstance?
Yes. So what the colleges have done in the past, which I think is what's going to happen again this time, is to they're going to pull back. So I said first of all that there's going to be a reduction in classes, in courses, in sections of courses, and in program program diversity that's available at each of the colleges. What colleges will have to do is to pull back on evening and weekend classes. They will pull back on courses that they are offering in smaller um, satellite centers and extension centers out in smaller communities, um, and cut back on student support services. So all of that means less access for people where they live and where they work, and at a time when uh, people need that access. They need to be able to work their part-time job during the day and go to school at night or on Saturdays. And we're if we have big budget cuts, we're not going to have the capacity to offer that to people.
Will tuition go up?
You know, if I knew that, I would be a legislator. So that is up to the legislature to decide. Right now, the policy of the state that's in statute allows tuition to increase by inflation. And so for the legislature to increase tuition beyond that would require uh, legislation.
Well, and they have done that in previous budget sessions
Done
that
that in the
were.
past. It's a challenging question because obviously it's a revenue source for our institutions and for universities. But I think that um, when you increase tuition, then the demand for financial aid goes up. And it's not just the amount of financial aid, but it's the share of people that can no longer afford to pay the tuition rates to go to college. So I think you know, there is some room. We are allowed to increase tuition by inflation this year, which we have done. Um, but to have a big uptick in the tuition rates, I think, is going to create huge access problems for families. And that's what
There's a
happened in the last recession. Tuition went up by double digits, and many families could no longer afford to send their kids to college.
there's also a sticker shock phenomenon, is there not, Jan, where people who even might qualify for a financial aid package, which would hold them harmless even against tuition increases, see that new number and are deterred.
Yes, so we don't want people to be deterred from going to college. Uh, this is not the time for people to hesitate about going to college if they need a college credential. So I think it's really important that we reach out to people, that people who even have a glimmer in their eye about going to college in this period pursue that. The staff at our colleges are open with and very willing to help people figure out what kinds of resources might be available to them to be able to go to college.
Are we doing this method of instruction on a quarter by quarter basis?
You mean online instruction?
Right.
What do you mean?
Except for the labs and some of the other hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
You've indicated that people are overwhelmingly doing this through distance learning for
Yes.
fall quarter.
Mm-hmm.
But no announcement's been made about winter quarter, no decision's been made about winter quarter.
You know, I think some of our colleges have made decisions about winter quarter and spring quarter. Of course, we're all watching the infection rates. We're all watching what's the progress of COVID-19, as well as the, you know, vaccinations that might become available. But I think it's really disruptive to students to switch their mode of instruction in the middle of a term, in the middle of a year. So that's what we learned from spring quarter, is that it was really disruptive to students, and some students couldn't make that transition. So I think many of our colleges are planning for online instruction for the bulk of this academic year. And there might be some more of a opening of face-to-face classes later on in the spring if if it looks like it's safe to do so. But health and safety for students and for faculty and staff are of utmost importance. And so our colleges are going to continue to do whatever they can to continue serving students in a safe environment.
I think I just heard you say distance learning again in winter quarter.
I think so.
Thank you, Jen. Your system is also serving an increasingly diverse student population.
That's right.
And I believe an increasing number of first generation post high school students.
Mm-hmm.
Are both of those things correct? And if so, can you give some data that helps us understand how community colleges are trying to respond to the changing world in which we exist?
Yes. So we have an incredibly diverse student body. Almost half of the students that attend community and technical colleges are students of color now. And there are at least 10 colleges in our system out of the 34 who have flipped over the halfway mark in terms of the diversity of their student body. So Highline Community College, for an example, 3/4 of their students are students of color. So we are incredibly accessible to communities of color who want to pursue higher education in our state. As you know, we have great age diversity among our students as well. So over half of our students work full or part-time while they're going to college. 1/4 of our students are parents and have children at home while they're going to college. And so we really are an opportunity place for people who want to raise the educational attainment for themselves and for their families. And it's a proud part of our tradition.
The second part of that is my perception that an increasing percentage of the students are first generation college students. Is that also correct?
Yes, that is also correct. I don't actually remember the share of the students who are first generation college students, but we do know that based on the other demographics of our student body, that we serve more first generation college students than other sectors of post-secondary education.
So I think I know the answer to this, but I'd be interested in your expert insight. Why is it important to all of us that community colleges serve an increasingly diverse student population and student population that are first generation college students?
I think we all want a fair and equitable society. And, when we think about opportunities for people to have good jobs and to support themselves and their families, that we know that a college credential is an essential part of that picture. And so if we want to provide that opportunity for all Washingtonians, then it's really important that we have open access institutions that are locally accessible to all communities in our state, including communities of color. We also know that when we look at the demographics of the population of people who are unemployed right now, that those people are overwhelmingly people of color, young adults, people who don't have college credentials. And so this is our forte. This is where the community and technical college system shines, is in providing access and support and helping folks in these categories, folks in these populations, be able to go to college, get a credential, and get onto a career pathway. And we know that we serve this function because we see it every day at our institutions. We see it in our data, and we know that we played this role in the last recession, and that we are expecting to play this role again.
I guess to all of that, I would add, we all win when we help as many people as possible be as productive and earn as much money as they desire to in a profession that they choose. The economy overall is healthier. We are each enhanced by providing those opportunities for as many people as possible. So Jan, here are some of the things that I've heard you say, takeaways, if you will. Count on distance learning in all likelihood, not just for fall quarter, but winter quarter. We'll see after that, dependent on vaccine driving the infection rate down. Enrollment is likely to be off. That's going to present some financial difficulties for the system and the individual colleges.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to be exacerbated very considerably by having state revenues way off and the disproportionate pressure and stress that will be brought to bear on the community college system in the next session of the legislature when they adopt the two-year budget. All this at a time when the very services that community colleges offer, which is to retool people who are unemployed now in part, and to get people ready for the next form of the economy, is at its greatest need. What did I leave out that's really important that you want to make sure people know?
Thank you for that summary. I think I want people to know that we will continue to do our best, our level best, even in these difficult times, to help people get the training and the education and the retraining that they need to be successful in our new economy. And we did that last time, and we will do that again. There will be significant challenges for individuals, and there will be significant challenges for us as institutions. But we stand ready to do the job that the state expects us to do.
Jan Yoshiwara, thank you very much. Thank you for your leadership at the State Board for Community Colleges. Again, thank you for joining us this evening. As I love to say, you have given of your most precious commodity, your time. I invite you to come back this Thursday. We have our 5th episode in the 7-part series related to our educational response to COVID-19. Again, that's Thursday, September 3rd at 5 o'clock. Our guest will be Elizabeth Yokia, who is the Workforce Development Librarian for the Washington State Library System, talking about issues, obviously, as to the role of the state library in providing help with workforce development. Again, thank you so very much for being here. As always, mask up, maintain social distance, wash your hands, follow public health guidelines, because it is the key to driving down the infection rate so that we can increase or open this economy up for the benefit of all of us. Jan, thanks again very much for being here, and thank you for joining us.